in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Good evening there, and welcome to the latest Elite FPL podcast preview show with myself and Jason. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone in the chat. How you doing? It's been a few days. You guys been missing us, I see. Hey, Boona. Hey, my shoot is not happy. Who's not been happy? Who's not missed us? Come on, who's not missed us?
Private joke.
Private joke. Okay, Alpha 9. Kushai Giri. Hey, Coolio 2 feet. Or 2 foots, Notorious Nerd, David Hackinson, Lee Brunt in chat, Jack Brady, Sam21G, Teddy Munguya, Halloween theme. Well, maybe we might have to change the theme to a Halloween Halloween one closer we get to that the end of the month. Flapjack, you're captaining Gazaniga. Good luck on that one, my friend. Anurag, welcome, Greasy Trumpet. I can't speak. Lee Brunt and Infamous FPL, Resi Desi, and many more of you guys. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. Game week 10. I can't believe we're already at game week 10. I thought I was going to be on 600 points by now, but alas, I'm not. How you doing, Steve? Anyway, you having a good one? Having a good night?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, I was ranting and raving at Dan about Champions League and everything, but couldn't be bothered to do a stream, so now I can do a stream and we can rant and rave about it now instead.
Wow, there's been some games on this evening. Obviously, we'll just brush over them. Man United beating FK Partizan, and God, it's again, no goal from open play though. It was a penalty. Martial took it. And Wolves beating Slovan Bratislava 2-1 with Diego Jota picking up a second yellow card in the second half late on. But yeah, and Raul Jimenez importantly getting on the score sheet. So people with Jimenez in going to be quite happy with that, I'd imagine. But guys, how you doing? We're going to be previewing game week 10 as we normally do. We've got the score predictions game, which you can all join in on. And there's some freaks of nature playing this score predictions game. Let's quickly just go on to the leaderboard because it's unbelievable. It got the same faces again towards the top. We've got this Christian guy. Now, Christian, if you watch the streams, by all means, get in touch with us because literally you're always up there, my friend, always. And Huey Faherty as well. He's doing amazing for the second month in a row. So Alex Todoros currently top, very very close at the top with 45 points. But guys, get yourself involved in this prediction game, and I'm going to log back in because I've just got logged out. But yeah, Steve-O, are you excited for game week 10?
The simple answer is yes, but the other answer is no because I'm worried about the older pep rotation, as they say. I think that's just the biggest concern for me. But there are some tasty fixtures, I think, for us to delve into when we start doing our predictions. And by the way, for anybody that wants to represent the callers, in other words, you guys, by all means, jump into the waiting room and we will just select someone at random that hasn't come on to the show so far.
Oh, yes.
And,
very, very good point.
Yes,
come and jump in on Discord now, guys.
Yeah, come in and we will get one person randomly on air to predict the score lines along with myself and Jason. And yeah, then we'll find out exactly what the history is suggesting who to captain. And interestingly enough, I did some maths on myself and I found out that if I'd have just simply gone with what the history had said captain-wise, I would be on 485 points and I would be 35th in the Cash Mini League, but instead I'm 73rd on 470 something points. So yeah, certainly definitely everybody listen out to what the captaincy selection is suggested by the history. All I will say is that Juggernaut, that is doing extremely well in our Cash Mini League, he is 5th. He has been going with the history's captaincy choice every single game week since the start of the season, and guess what? He's doing exceedingly well. He's 5th in our Cash Mini League, and it's very, very frustrating because, as Jason said the other day, it's a shame you didn't go with your own advice, Steve-O. Exactly.
It is, mate. It is. It's a massive shame. I mean, I keep falling on your own sword, I'm afraid, and I've got no sympathy. You have to change your way of playing.
Yeah. In fact, Juggernauts is actually down to 8th. He's dropped down to 8th.
We've got Maverick Marco in the waiting room at the moment. We'll bring you in a moment, Maverick. But yeah, I just want to say, a couple of people have asked, how do you play this score prediction game? EliteFPL.com. Get yourself signed up to the score prediction game. It's completely free to play. And yes, get yourself in for a prize of one of our merchandise items at the end of each month. So yes. Shall we see if we can bring Maverick Marco in, Steve-O?
Absolutely. Let's get him on air. Let's get him predicting.
Yes. Maverick Marco. Oh, hang on. Let me just unmute myself, and that would help probably in Discord. Maverick. Hang on.
Hello.
Hello, Maverick. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, guys. How are you? Yeah,
not too bad. It's thank you ever so much for volunteering yourself to come on this evening for our score predictions. We've got a whole new green theme to the channel. Let's know what you think of that, guys. We've been going green. We've got some interesting games coming up. We've got a massive Saturday, haven't we, of football? If we just scroll to Saturdays, have we?
Sunday, you mean?
Sunday of football. Yeah, massive Sunday. Are we actually going to? What are we do? Yeah, Saturday. Are we actually going to be doing a stream on Sunday, Steve-O? Have we decided yet?
It's down to you, really. That's your choice. It's got nothing to do with me. It's down to you.
Well, maybe we'll do a poll. Maybe we'll do a poll on Twitter. Would you like a Sunday stream covering the games? Yes or no? A spring. Yeah, sorry, I do apologise. Saturday's fixtures are. They got Man City. Other than that, all the big games are on Sunday. Yeah, all the big Sunday. Right, so guys, welcome Maverick, Marco. Thank you so much for joining us on air. You probably know the format. We're just going to go through the fixtures. We're going to give our opinions on the scores. We're going to listen to what the history has to say, and Steve-O will take the predictions down, and we all get marked. Steve-O, would you like to remind everybody how last week how we fared against the guest?
Yeah, last week it was our former co-host Dan. He came on and he actually, along with the history, got 9 points, but unfortunately the history came through because it got two of the results bang on the money, which was the Everton game and the Aston Villa game. So unfortunately to Dan, the point went to the history. So as it stands right now, I'm winning at the moment. I'm out on top with 4 points. Jason, you're on 1. The callers are on 2, and the history is on 2. So at least I'm winning at something.
Well, there you go. You got something to. And also, I just want to say very quickly before. Sorry to interrupt you, Steve-O, but Arsenal. There's been a bit of a goal fest we've missed. The chat have been talking about it. If anyone's interested, Arsenal are now losing 2-1 to a club called Victoria Sport.
1-0 a second ago, but
yeah, they were winning they were losing 1-0. Then they scored. Sorry, Gabriel Martinelli scored, and then Bruno Duarte da Silva, as just a moment ago, scored for Victoria. So Arsenal now 2-1 down. So yeah, Arsenal fans hoping to ease their woes. Not a great start for you guys. But yeah, anyway, sorry, Steve-O, you were mid-flow then.
No. What I was going to say is in Super Brew, I'm doing pretty well as well. So.
Well, there you go. You're doing good in something. Get some bets on at the weekend. There we go.
Rubbish at fantasy football. When it comes to predicting, I'm pretty good. And talking of which, the rules are quite simple, really. If you get the correct score outcome right, you get 1 point. If you get it near enough, you get 2 points. And if you get it bang on the money, you get 3. During this, I will give you what the history predicts will be the scoreline. I also give a little statistic as to what could potentially happen in this game. It's kind of like a common theme which has been going on. For example, the statistics have been doing really, really well this season. It's just completely bizarre. One of them being last week, for example, that in the Everton versus West Ham game, across the 6 fixtures, there have been 4 clean sheets spread across those 6 games. And of course, last week it ended 2-0, so there was a clean sheet. It's not a precise statistic. It's not going to tell you exactly where that statistic is going to go, but for some strange reason, the statistic with the common theme does seem to happen every single match. It's completely bizarre, and I highly recommend listening to specifically this week's history statistics, because there are some cracking ones in there.
Davey yes. FPL in chat saying, did somebody say Super Brew? Hey, Davey. Yeah, how you doing, Davey? Hey, Boona. Hey. So Maverick, remind everybody, what team do you support?
United, same as yourself, Jason.
Yes. And did you watch the game this evening?
No, unfortunately, I didn't. I've only not long been home from work. So
well, I can tell you now, you haven't missed much. Okay, it was dire. Yeah. It's basically disappointing. Okay. So you're probably better off at work. But thank you again for coming on. So we're going to go through the fixtures, and we'll let you go first. So Friday, it's tomorrow. We have this week's gone really quick for me. We've got Southampton at home to Leicester. Now this is an interesting fixture. Obviously at 8:00 kickoff. What would you like to go with this fixture, Maverick?
Yeah, so I'll go 2-1 to Leicester. I think I heard the stat that Southampton have scored in every home game they played under
They have,
Hasselhoff.
yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, Sion-Chu owners.
2-1 to Leicester. Do you get that, Steve-O? So you're next, Steve-O. Go on then. Give us your prediction.
I'm going 2-1 as well. I think it's going to be a tight game again, but I do think that Leicester will just come out on top, winning 2-1. Jason.
Oh well, we got some people in chat that are disagreeing with you right here, Steve. We've got some people that are echoing your thoughts. We've got 2-1 Leicester, Chelsea Flyer 1-1 says Hicks 76. Yeah, lots of 1-1. Sam 21G 1-1. Jack Brady 1-1. Ryan Kearns 9 1-1. Raxis 1337. VAR all saying 1-1.
They're playing Leicester. People aren't aware of this. It's not Southampton Brighton or Southampton versus Watford. This is Leicester.
Wow. I tell you what, I'm gonna listen to the majority and I'm gonna go with a 1-1.
Yeah?
I'm gonna go with a 1-1, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, the history's going surprise, 2-1 to Leicester. It's quite a strange statistic here. So whenever there's been a game where both teams have scored, it's been followed by a clean sheet game. So both teams have won 2 apiece in the last 6 fixtures. The 2 draws were both 0-0, and they were coincidentally at the King Power Stadium. So thankfully this is at St Mary's, so we don't need to worry about a potential 0-0 there. But yeah, like I said, 2-1. A bit of this isn't a specific popular captain pick, but just out of respect to Booner, so FPL Booner, one of our moderators / one of our Elite FPL hardcore followers, he did ask about he'd be interested in Jamie Vardy's statistics versus Southampton. He started 4 times against Southampton and he's got 1 assist. So yeah, there we are there. So moving on to the big one where a lot of people are going to be captaining an asset here. It's Manchester City versus Aston Villa. It's the lunchtime kickoff. Maverick, what do you think?
I'll say 6-1 City.
6-1.
Yeah. Hopefully Sterling will play because I think I'm going to captain him. So. And if Mendy plays, and I think hopefully he will, because I think Zinchenko's injured, isn't he? So I think that'll give he'll provide the natural width on the left, and then hopefully Sterling will be able to get in the box a little bit more like he has the last couple of games. So
chat, I can do Lansbury to David Silva. Do you reckon I should do it? Yes or no? Let me know. Hit me on the down low. Right, Steve, go on.
Another -4. Yeah,
go on then. Let's go.
Well, I think this is going to be a comprehensive victory. I'd like to think that it's going to be 3 or 4, and I'm going 4-0, Jason. 4-0.
Yeah, people in chat are already talking about it as well. We got 3-0 City, says Mohit. David Atkinson saying 4-1 City. Infamous FPL 6-1. Sharing your view, Maverick. We got Mark Byrne saying 2-0 City. 4-1 City. Resi Desi. Kushal Giri saying 5-1 to City, 5-0. This rings a bell, doesn't it? Remember that game versus Norwich? Yeah, it's ringing a bell, these scorelines.
That was away.
Yeah, I know, but it's just starting to ring a bell. Yassine Klaus is saying 5-0. James Carson is saying 5-1 to City. I know it's at home, Steve-O. I know it's at home, but I think that I'm going to be more conservative on this one. People are saying no to that. Well, 2 no's, 2 yeses, and I think everyone else is just giving score predictions. That's fair enough. I probably not going to do it. I'm not going to do that transfer, guys. I'm only messing around. Do wait for news. David Silva is fit. He has an injury. Yeah, Ari Hiroki, I was just messing. Sorry. Aguero better start. That's absolutely a massive talking point. Will Aguero start? That is the question. Chelsea Fly, I don't think they're going to win 17-0. Maybe you accidentally put a 7 after the 1. I'm going to go with a convincing 3-0 win for Man City.
3-0. The history's going 4-0. City have won this fixture 3 times 4-0. Of the 6 fixtures, they have kept 5 clean sheets and they've won 5 out of 6. So it should be, I'd like to think, after that hammering the other day, They should get back to simple winning ways quite comfortably. Now, moving on to Brighton versus Everton. Maverick, your thoughts on this?
Steve-O, just a quick one on your captain history. Sterling, KDB and Aguero. Anything on that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, so Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling, the popular captain picks. So Aguero has started 3 times versus Aston Villa. He scored 4 times. Kevin De Bruyne, he's made 1 start at 6 and nothing in that game.
That's due to injury, though.
Sterling, however, 2 starts, 1 sub-appearance, 2 goals. So yes, but the history isn't actually... Well, it is. It's suggesting to go with Aguero as captain out of all these people. But there's also another player that the history is going to be suggesting to captain this particular game. But certainly in this particular fixture, Aguero looks to be the one to be captaining based on 3 starts, 4 goals. So thank you for quickly reminding me there, Maverick. There, what are your thoughts on Brighton versus Everton?
Brighton Everton, I'll probably say 2-0 Everton.
Everton.
Oh, okay.
Score more than 1.
Yeah, I think I've seen a bit of a resurgence in Everton.
Could it be the game that Lucas Digne does something?
Maybe. So yeah, I'll go 2-0 Everton. Yeah, only because I think Everton may start to turn the season around now.
I'll go next, Steve-O, just to butt in. I'm gonna say that this is gonna be. I think Brighton defensively are brilliant, and I don't see Everton scoring. I really, really don't. I see it being a 1-0 win to Brighton.
That's exactly what I've put. I think this game is going to be absolutely rubbish. And I think that Brighton are going to come out of it just about 1-0 as well. The history's going 2-1 to Brighton. There's only been 4 fixtures between these 2 teams, and Brighton are actually unbeaten. They've won 1 and drawn 1. Whereas if it was at Everton's ground, they are actually unbeaten themselves, winning both the games. Maverick, we move on to Watford versus Bournemouth.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1 Bournemouth. Wilson hat-trick.
I just want to say that a lot of people agreeing with Brighton win. 2-0 Brighton, Ari Hiroki. 2-1 Brighton, Mac. 1-0 Everton, says the Glenzo 84. 2-1 to Everton 09. But then Mark Beam says 2-1 to Brighton, 2-1 to Everton. Okay, so there's a bit of a split one. David Whitehouse 2-1 to Brighton. 0-0 says Ryan Kerrs. So yeah. 3-0 Brighton, says Flapjack in chat. 3-0 Everton, says Josh. It's pretty split on the score predictions in that game. It's actually really 50-50 which way it will go. But yeah, the Bournemouth predictions are coming in now. Steve-O, what's your thoughts?
Well, Maverick said about a turnaround for Everton. Well, I was listening to Planet FPL and they were talking about Watford looking like if they could stick to their defensive ways that they had against Spurs, it looks like they may have found a way in which they could shut up shop. And I honestly think that this is going to be the kind of game where Bournemouth come unstuck. And I think they're going to lose this. I think Watford are going to win this. I'm going to go 1-0 to Watford, Jason.
Wow, I can understand that. I can understand they need to turn a corner, Watford, and I think Watford will score, but I don't think Bournemouth are going to lose. I think it's going to be 2-1 to Bournemouth. A lot of people going with the Bournemouth win. 4-1 Bournemouth. Notorious Nud saying 2-2. Mr. Anderson saying 1-1. DUK saying 1-1. Bournemouth 2-0 says Chelsea Flyer. Watford 2-1 says Arnie Arnold. 3-1 I presume to Watford. Daniel Nash. 2-1 Watford. A lot of people actually agreeing, actually. We've got Resi Desi saying 2-1 Watford. James Carson 2-1 Watford. DUK did say 1-0. I said that twice. I don't know why. Jordan Booman 2-2. 1-0 Watford Flapjack. So yeah. Okay. Seems to be a bit of a Watford resurgence on the predictions there.
Yeah, the history is agreeing with Notorious Nerd. It's saying 2-2. There has been 4 draws in the last 6, 3 of which have been 2-2, 1 being 3-3. The 2 wins that have happened in this particular fixture, bizarrely, have had a clean sheet in it. So it looks like it could be a high-scoring game. Moving on to another game, which I think is going to be so tight. I was struggling to call this. I was thinking 0-0, 1-0 either way. It's West Ham versus Sheffield United. I've got West Ham to nick this just 1-0, but I wouldn't surprise me if it ended 0-0, Jason. What do you think on this, Jace?
This is a really tough one. This is really tough. Sheffield United really composed at the back. They got a really drilled defence, and my allegiances with Lundstrom wants me to say that Sheffield United can get something out of this game, as I don't really care much about West Ham. Sorry, Wiz, and all the West Ham fans in chat. I'm going to go with an unfortunate, boring, drab game, though. I'm going to go with 0-0.
0-0. What about you, Maverick?
Yeah, so I think Sheffield United looked really good, especially at the back, and I think they're going to be on a high after the Arsenal result on Monday. I'm going to go for 1-0 Sheffield United.
Wow. 1-0 to Sheffield United.
Well, in chat, we've got Yarmo Party, says Jack Brady. Hopefully Yarmolenko can repay all those patient owners. Sheffield United 4 clean sheets. Yes, they're doing well. Ryan Kearns 2-1 Hammers. 0-0 Plavak says in chat. Josh is saying 1-0 Sheffield. VAR 0-0. Mark Burns says 2-0. Jack Brady 3-1 to Hammers. Yeah.
I like what Sam21G has said. Going 2-0 to West Ham. Sheffield United have actually haven't won in 16 games in London, losing 11 and drawing 5. That's a very nice statistic.
That's a very good statistic, Sam21G. Very interesting. Can I change my mind?
You can if you want.
1-0 West Ham.
1-0 West Ham.
Yeah.
The history's going 1-1. There's been 3 1-1s involved in this fixture, and it seems to be when West Ham seems to win, it ends with a clean sheet. So yeah, although Sheffield United, when they have won, they've won it twice in the last 6, and West Ham once, and both of them all 3 ending with a clean sheet there. So if someone does seem to win, it is by a clean sheet. Moving on to the evening kickoff, which I'll be covering. I don't know if Jason can, but certainly we'll be covering the Burnley versus Chelsea game. This is not a good time to be playing Chelsea whatsoever. Confidence is high. I think last night was their 5th or 6th game in a row that they've won. Tammy Abraham seems to be scoring goals for fun away from home. I do think this is going to be a tight game, though, but I think Chelsea's quality will just shine through, and I'm going 2-1 to Chelsea. Maverick, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really hard one to call because Burnley are great defensively at home, and Chelsea, I think, have scored more away from home than they have at home. So, it could go either way. I mean, I'll go for 2-2.
Wow, 2-2. Well,
Desmond.
That's.
I'll take that now.
Yeah, there you go, Steve-o.
That's a very interesting. Wow, that shocked me actually. I'm going to go with a convincing victory for Chelsea here. With my triple up of Chelsea, I expect no less than 3 goals, and Burnley to reply with 1. 3-1 to Chelsea.
History's going 2-1. In this fixture, there's been 21 goals scored in the last 6. Bizarrely at home, Burnley have lost 2 and drawn 1. Whereas if this was at Stamford Bridge, we'd have more of a chance. We've won 1, drawn 1, and lost 1. So unfortunately, the omens aren't looking good for us here. Now moving on to Sunday, on to the first game of the afternoon. It's 2:00. It's Newcastle versus Wolves, and I really do think this is going to be atrocious, this game, and I'm going to go with an absolute drab 0-0 Maverick. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'll go score draw 1-1.
Yeah, that's all Wolves seem to do. In fact, I saw that Wolves in the last 9 fixtures they've actually drawn 5 times. It's crazy. I think 3 of them or 4 of them being 1-1.
I just see a flood. I just see a flood of 1-1s and a few 0-0s in there, and now a couple of 1-0s. And a 2-1 from Ari Hiroki, so Wolves. I'm going to go with a Newcastle win. 1-0 Newcastle.
Newcastle to win, really?
Yeah, Newcastle to win 1-0. Mark Burns agreeing with me. Me and you, we're gonna get this. Put that bet on, Mark. We got this, dude. We got this.
Wow. The history's going 2-0 to Wolves. Of the last 6, Wolves have won 3. Newcastle have won 2. Of those 4 out of 5 victories for either team, again, it has been to nil. So a lot of the statistics are coming in here with if a team wins the specific fixture, it always seems to end with a clean sheet. Now, moving on to Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. Now, after hearing the result now and, of course, what happened on Monday evening and everything, I'm thinking of possibly changing my result. In fact, I'm thinking of doing it right now, and I think that Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, I've originally got it as 3-1 to Arsenal.
No, they won't score 3 goals.
No, that's what I'm thinking. I'm actually going to go with a shot. I'm going 1-1. There's something about Arsenal. Are they bottling it? I know Dan's there. Are you bottling it, Danny boy? I'm going 1-1, Jason. Maybe 2-1 Arsenal, but I'll officially put it down as 1-1.
I'm going to go with a realistic scoreline, and I think that Zaha is going to get chopped in the box. I'm going to go with a Milivojevic winner, 2-1 Palace.
2-1 to Palace.
There you go.
What about you, Maverick?
McTavius, if you're watching me, that's for you, my friend.
So yeah, no, I think Arsenal will win this one. I know Palace are good away from home, and Arsenal have been a bit leaky defensively, but yeah, I can see Arsenal winning, even if it's coming from behind. I'll go 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1 Arsenal. You think they can score 3 against Palace? Interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you've got Aubameyang up front, Jason, it's
will he be playing down the centre? Will he be playing that? Well, it's true.
Well, because I've said this for a while about Lacazette, but Emery was always going to ease him back. He was never going to just throw him straight back in.
Yeah.
And obviously, he didn't even start him on Monday. He came off the bench. He started him tonight, and obviously Aubameyang's not even in the squad. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lacazette through the middle on Sunday and Lacazette back on the bench. I think he'll ease him into the action. And I think Saka will play it again. So yeah, I've got Saka and Aubameyang in the team, and hopefully they'll both start.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, I just don't see it myself, but I love to be proven wrong, and it happens a lot in this game. Liverpool v Tottenham.
Well, I was gonna say Sam21G has come out with a lovely. Thank you for these stats.
Stats.
In 12 London derbies at home, Arsenal have won 9, drawn 2, lost 1, have scored at least twice. Nice.
I'm not changing. I'm not changing.
Talking of which, talking of captaincies, Aubameyang and Lacazette in this specific fixture. So Aubameyang has started twice versus Crystal Palace and has scored twice. Lacazette has made 4 starts, has got 1 goal and 2 assists. The history suggesting 3-2 to Arsenal. Crystal Palace in this particular fixture have scored 2+ goals on 4 occasions. Arsenal have won 3 out of the last 6, whereas Crystal Palace have won 2 and drawn 1. So moving on to Liverpool versus Spurs. I mean, this could be any old score, but I think it is going to be tight. And I'm going Liverpool to edge this 2-1.
Maverick?
I thought you were going then, Jake.
No, you go.
Yeah, as Steve said, this could be anything. I think Tottenham will score, but I think Liverpool just have too much. So yeah, 2-1 again. 2-1 again. That's a popular scoreline. We got Mr. Anderson saying 2-0 Liverpool. Vince Chapman 3-1 Liverpool. Sam 2G saying 2-1 Liverpool. Nick Patel 5-1 Liverpool. Yassine 2-1. Tahir 4-1. Plavak 5-0. Alpha 9 1-all. 2-1 to Spurs. Zinzga. Really? Hello, Muke for Lewis. Hello. I would say that this game, could it be a surprise? Could it be the game that Liverpool drop points? The big game at home to Tottenham. Could it be the game that they drop 2 points?
I think it could be. And I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. And I saw Boonus gone with the same as well. I think Son, I've got rid of Son. I'm possibly going to rue that in this game. I think there's a chance that this could be a bit of a disappointing game for a lot of Liverpool fans.
Well, the history is going to another 2-1 to Liverpool. Liverpool have scored two or more.
I just want to say, James, I could listen. This season has thrown up a lot of surprises. I'm not saying it because I'm just a United fan. It's just, I think that the Tottenham have got it in them to score 2 goals against Liverpool. And everyone out, like majority of people, James, Carson, are actually going with the Liverpool convincing win. So let's not just focus on my prediction. Let's just read everyone else's because they're all going with Liverpool wins. Carry on, Steve.
Yeah, the history's going 2-1 to Liverpool. Liverpool have scored 2 or more in 5 out of the last 6. And of those 5 out of the last 6, they are unbeaten, winning 4 and drawing once. Well, talking of that particular game, I like this. I like this a lot. So Mane has started 5 times versus Tottenham. He's only scored twice, and that was in the same game. Salah, on the other hand, this is when I'm thinking, I wish I owned Salah now. 6 games against Tottenham, has scored 4 times. So very, very nice indeed there. So if you own Salah, yeah, just like John Harris, captain Salah, yeah, 4:30 kickoff. Could be in for some luck there. Finally, we move on to your game, Jason. Norwich versus Man U.
Yeah, we're gonna lose.
And
we're gonna lose. I'm gonna go with a Norwich 2-0 win to Norwich. This is me being realistic. We can't score very many goals in open play, and I just think we're gonna lose. Norwich at home, 2-0. Boom. There we go.
Maverick, what are you thinking on this then?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to be unrealistic either, really. But I mean, yeah, I think Pukki will score. It's written in the stars, isn't it? And we're, United are lacking, creativity at the moment. I think tonight, as Jason said before, I think we only created like 1 chance from open play, and yeah, it's not looking good. So I'm gonna go 1-1.
I don't think Martial will make too much of a difference, Pidey. I think there's a lot of problems in the team at the moment, and Man United aren't going to lose to Norwich. Come on, Darren Walsh, come on at the weekend and tell me on Sunday. Come on the Sunday surgery and tell me how wrong I was.
Or
Anyway,
live when the game's going on.
All that.
I'm a bit more confident than you two. I think that Man United's class will show through. I think they're going to edge it 2-1, but it wouldn't surprise me if it ended 1-0 to United. But I'm going to go 2-1. History's going 1-0. Again, this is very, very bizarre statistics. At Old Trafford, of the last 6, all 3 of them have ended 4-0. Whereas at Carrow Road, 2 of them have ended 1-0 to United. Man United winning 5 out of the last 6. Yeah, so the history could be on their side. So just to reiterate the points regarding the captaincies here, we've got Aguero. The history suggesting Captain Aguero of Kevin De Bruyne and Sterling. So Aguero's statistics are 3 starts versus Aston Villa. He scored 4 goals. Kevin De Bruyne, 1 start, nothing. Sterling, 2 starts, 1 sub-appearance, 2 goals. Aubameyang, 2 starts, 2 goals versus Crystal Palace. Lacazette, if you own him, Crazy Jack, I'm talking to you basically. 4 starts, 1 goal, 2 assists. The Liverpool assets, Mane, 5 starts versus Tottenham. He's got 2 goals. Salah, all you Salah owners will be loving this. 6 starts and 4 goals. So there we are. Maverick, we have your team up in the Discord. You seem all set, don't you? Very, very nice team indeed.
Yeah, I'm all set. No transfers this week. I took a -4 last week to get Pukki out and to get Wilson in. So I'm just gonna roll my transfer this week. the debate is obviously between Sterling and De Bruyne captain. I think I was on De Bruyne at the start of the week, but having seen Sterling smashing a hat trick and then checking his heat maps and stuff of the last few games where Mendy played, and he's been in the box a lot more, and back to the kind of old Sterling that we know from last season. So and in terms of the whole rest and rotation business, I'm hoping if Sterling doesn't start, he doesn't come on like the Watford 8-0, where all the Sterling captains got the KDB haul on the vice. So I'm probably just going to roll with this Sterling captain, but to be honest, I hope he starts and gets a haul.
You're not tempted to put the vice captaincy on Salah at all?
No, because if Sterling doesn't start, then I'm sure De Bruyne will, and I'd rather captain a Man City player than no one. Obviously, I always do like to normally have my captain and my vice on different players from different teams, just in case there's like a bomb scare or some kind of freak weather and the game gets called off. But on this occasion, I'm rolling with the double.
Not considered Aubameyang at all then?
No, well, it's only because of Palace's away form really, and the fact that obviously I watched Arsenal against Sheffield on Monday, and they were so unconvincing. I know it was away, and Sheffield have been solid, but Arsenal just struggles really, for creativity and just to get any kind of pass and movement together. Aubameyang looked isolated, to be honest. So I know he's a different animal at home, but I just think the City fixtures is too good to pass up. Hopefully get another cheeky start out of Saka as well. He's probably on his last legs, to be honest.
I think he'll get some minutes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at a team, it's other than the bench doesn't leave a lot to be desired. But
yeah, don't look at the bench.
I mean, let's hope you don't have to rely on it. That's all I'm going to say. Obviously, Saka being a bit of a worry. One of Sterling or De Bruyne, possibly a shock rotation there. Alexander-Arnold will be fine. It's just a virus, wasn't it? He had just a bit of a cold or something like that.
Yeah, hopefully.
A Lundstrom. The mighty Lundstrom you've got in there, Rico. Yeah, looks familiar. I think your Heaton goalkeeper is you're going to be hoping for save points in that game. But I do think that I think your armband's correct. I think if I had Sterling in my team, the armband would be on him. Well, actually, would it? Because if I'm following the history, I'm going to go with Aguero. So I think he's the second best captaincy pick, assuming Aguero starts. So I think you've got the right pick there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this team's almost turning into a bit of a dead end team, because the more and more funds are kind of squeezed out of everywhere really, as you said about the bench. If there is any injuries, I'll be forced to wild card. Luckily, I have still got my wild card, so that's why
very good.
I'm not too worried, because worst case scenario, if I do get a few injuries or whatever, mass rotation, then I can just pull a wild card out, and I have got a bit of a plan.
So you thoughts on Block FPL saying Vardy over Aubameyang, especially when considering price? Interesting. I mean, that's an interesting move to free up money for your wildcard if you were to do one. Was that something which you'd consider possibly bringing Vardy in and taking Aubameyang out to free up those funds?
Yeah. I mean, I can see the logic behind that, but I personally, Arsenal's fixture run for the next month or two is awesome. I wanted Aubameyang for this run, and I'm just gonna stick with him now. I do like Vardy, but definitely someone I could consider on my wild card. If I need to go down that road. Obviously, I haven't got any Leicester, so
can you remind everybody in chat whereabouts you are in the overall rankings?
Yeah, so I think I'm like 390k. So not
respectable. Very respectable.
Yeah, respectable. But I mean, my mate in work, he's I think he's like 35 points above me, and he's like 29k. So I'm really not worried at all, because one good captain haul or a couple of good weeks from me, and I'm I'm in the top 30k. So again, rank at this time is so tight.
This season especially seems to be very, very, very close, very tight. but it's still early days. It's game week 10. Give it 4 or 5 more game weeks. I thought it'd be a bit more spread out by now, but it does seem to be very chocker. Love this channel. Thank you, Mook, for much appreciate it. But thank you, Maverick, for joining us this evening on the score predictions. Thank you for everything. And have you got any final thoughts before we move on to our teams?
No. Just thanks for having me on, guys. Enjoy the game week. Hopefully, it'll be a nice big fat juicy points haul rather than the piles of rubbish that we've had the last few weeks.
I'm getting used to those red arrows, Maverick. I am getting used to them. Are you going to be free on the weekend to pop in and talk to us about either on the Sunday surgery or on the actual streams on the day itself?
Yeah, maybe on the Sunday. I've got a family party on the Saturday, but hopefully on the Sunday I'll be probably nursing a hangover. So
hopefully it'll be a nice green arrow for you too. Thank you ever so much, Maverick. We'll speak soon, I hope.
Cheers, dude.
Take care, buddy.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers now. Excellent. Brilliant. Right, so Steve-O, have you posted your you have posted your team in the team screenshots channel. Let's bring Steve-O's team up. Steve-O's team, for those listening on audio, is Ryan in goal, Lundstram, Alexander-Arnold, Pereira as a back three, with a mighty midfield of Mount, Hudson-Odoi, De Bruyne and Mane. Looking very similar to my team, actually, this, doesn't it? And then we've got Abraham, Callum Wilson and Aguero with your captaincy. Very strong, Steve-O. You've got to be quietly confident that this team's going to score you big points. I mean, everything logic dictates that looking at this team, looking at the fixtures on paper, looking at the quality in there, you're going to get a good score. Are you confident, Steve-O? Come on.
I'm never
Come on, Steve-O.
It's like Maverick just said, you hope for a big score, but reality is that the way my luck's gone this... In fact, Dan was telling me on our private conversations, basically, that this season really is down to like a lot of luck. And the most basic example I can think of right off the top of my head is when I keep mentioning this because it's just true. It's the one differential I had over you, and Salah was literally seconds away after being taken off on a stretcher, and then lo and behold, Liverpool go and get a penalty, and he would have been the one that took it. Unfortunately, it was another pitch, and it's just simple things like that which seem to be going against me. Now, initially, I've literally just changed it, actually. Initially, my team was Mane as my captain.
Okay.
And I had Soyuncu instead of Lundstram, but I hold my hands up. I was going to do the office line there. In fact, I will do it. Guilty. But I know I've put myself into a stupid predicament where I've got double Leicester defence, and I just can't. I can just see tomorrow evening it's going to be on the radio. Danny Ings has scored his fourth goal in a row now for Southampton, and that'll be my double. Well, whatever, my clean sheet double potentially gone. So yeah, I'm just going to hedge my bets and play Lundstram.
Well, a lot of
instead.
A lot of compliments on your team I've read in chat. It's
compliments don't mean equal points, though, do they?
I know. Chelsea Flyer says Coca-Cola is bad for you. I know it is. I really do, but it's so bloody cheap. When I went shopping, I was in Aldi, right, and they had 15 cans. They had 15 cans for like $4.99 or something. So I just thought, no, you know what? I'm gonna pick them up. And apparently, Diet Coke, there's something in... I read an article or read a headline that apparently there's something in Diet and Coke Zero that is like a substitute for the sugar, and it's incredibly bad for you. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. It's actually worse for you than the actual full-fat drink. I can't quote the source of that information, so look it up. Anyway, I digress. Steve-O, you mentioned Soyuncu. You're benching Rico. You're playing Lundstram. You're confident Lundstram's going to do...
Sorry, say that again.
You're confident that that Lundstram is going to get those points over Soyuncu or Rico?
I just think, the reasoning being is because I just think that West Ham game, there's a higher chance of a clean sheet than in the Leicester game. So I'm just like I said, I'm just hedging my bets, and I really do think that game against West Ham is going to be dire. I really can see it being nil. I mean, West Ham, I don't know what it is about them, but they struggled against Everton. It's like Serge said on Planet FPL, when it comes to teams that don't like to play football, essentially teams like Sheffield United, West Ham struggle. Like I said, I think West Ham will just come through it. It'll probably end up 4-0 now, but I think Sheffield United have got a higher chance of keeping a clean sheet than Leicester. So I'd rather just stick with one less defender. I wouldn't play Rico against Watford because I really do think that.
Well,
it's just a captaincy. I'm just going to go with the history. I'm just going to go with Aguero. I'm just going to stick it on him, and hopefully the rest of my team can cover the points. Because,
let's be blunt. I don't see there being a great difference of points between me and you this season. This game week, and this is the reason why. So we've seen Steve-O's team. Let's take a look at my team. Let's have a quick look and a quick peek.
Well, it's exactly the same, barring Rico and Ram.
It's a little bit different. So instead of Pereira, I've got Soyuncu. Instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, I've got Matip. And obviously, I've got Rico playing instead of your Lundstrom. So I could change it. And copy you just to frustrate you a bit more. Just bring Lundstrom in and bench Rico. But no, armbands on Aguero. Ramsdale in goal. That's my big differential over you, Steve-O. So yes, you can see, guys, I got rid of Son. I've got 3.8 million in the bank to play with.
I still think that's a mad. I still think getting rid of Son for Hudson-Odoi was for Hudson-Odoi.
It is,
wasn't
yeah.
I think it's ridiculous.
Son went down, Hudson went up, and I just think that, you know what? I didn't see him play midweek, and I was still kind of thinking, you know what? I just think, I don't know. I liked what you were saying about Hudson-Odoi. I looked into Hudson-Odoi. I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, but not the Son. I would never have got rid of Son.
I can use the money elsewhere, though, Steve-O. I can use the money elsewhere. My back line is looking really poor. And over the next few weeks, I can possibly upgrade my back line to more premium assets. And who knows? I mean, I can even go Lansbury up to David Silva, which I'm not going to do, by the way. Upgrade Loughton, for God's sake, who's been in my team, stinking my team up. I don't know. Since that assist, he's not done anything, but I wouldn't expect much anyway. But no, in all honesty, I'm not too worried about not owning Son for this week. Even though he is Spurs' best player, and Bruno would probably tell me that. But Bruno did want to get rid of all of his Spurs players last weekend, don't forget. How much in the bank? 3.8 million. 3.8 million in the bank, Chelsea Flyer. Sounds good, right? If only I could withdraw that in real life.
I was, you know, when you did, was it a minus 16 or 12 after your wild card? Remind me, I genuinely can't remember.
It was a minus 16 after my wild card, yes.
Right. I was legitimately seriously thinking of doing a minus 8, just get it out the way, getting rid of Pereira, Callum Wilson. Oh no, it was minus 4 actually. Pereira and Callum Wilson, bringing in Vardy and whoever for. It was Bowley, and then I was going to bring in Bowley for this was for minus 4. I'd have 5.1 in the bank, and then I would have Bowley, Soyuncu, and Alexander-Arnold as my main back three, and then I'd have Vardy up front instead of Wilson. I was going to do that from minus 4.
Not worth, I don't think. I think Wilson...
No, I'm not going to do it, but I think that could be potentially a transfer in when I've got 2 free transfers for game week 11.
Yeah.
I just feel like in the words of Delboy, a plonker.
Well, I just want to say as well, the people that, just changing the subject slightly, the people on about bringing in Martial and other United assets like Rashford, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be me. Don't fall into that trap. Sorry, I'm just a bit dejected at the moment. I know we won tonight. I should be happy, right? Should be happy. Yay. It's all wow. We can score penalties. I'm being different and captaining Salah, says Simeon Batchelor in chat. Well, I think that's not a bad shout. I do think that Salah looked very, very good in Europe. I was going to say Europa then. And I think him being back in that team, I think the 2 goals, I said 2-2, I think he could be in on those 2 goals. Might be too late for that, Jason. No. Says Daily Llama. Ryan or Henderson, chaps? I'll go with Ryan. I own Henderson, but I wish I was a Ryan owner. I got lucky last week.
Well, last week, show me the Mane bench Salah. We all know what happened there. Salah didn't play, and then this week, show me the Mane saying that he's transferred Abraham out ahead of Burnley. Who did you bring in, Mane? Tell us, Wayne, who you brought in for Abraham. That would be very interesting. Boone is saying that he's brought in Martial and Rashford this week.
Why would Mane take out Abraham? What does he know that we don't? I hope it backfires on you, Mane. I really, really, really do. I really do, because I need to catch you. You're flipping miles.
Yeah.
You're flipping miles away. I hope you brought in blooming Benteke. We got.
Well, whoever he's brought in, he'll probably score a hat trick.
Hey, Christian, are you the same Christian that's like dominating the predictor league? I'll be interested to know. Already brought in Martial, might be my vice captain. Coolio 2 foots. Good luck. Massive differential. But good luck. Abraham is gone. No more goals. Don't be silly, Chelsea flyer. Plenty more goals than Tammy Abraham. If you pull this one off, Mane, I would like to meet you next week for tea and cakes, says Darren Walsh. Well, he's doing everything right at the moment, so it wouldn't surprise me. Would you play Lundstrom against West Ham or Aurier away at Liverpool? Lundstrom.
I've just seen that. Yeah, Ian, don't be a fool. Lundstrom. That's an easy decision there. John Harris, what to do with Heaton? I'd keep him. I think unless you've got other weaknesses in your team, I would stick with Heaton for now. I think goalkeepers are the last thing to be worried about. But for anybody that wants to come on and talk about
yes.
their teams, their dilemmas, we want to get you involved on the chat. In fact, more importantly, I always keep forgetting to say this. When we get you live on air, I'll be more interested to hear about your thoughts on the weekend's games themselves, where you think the goals will be scored, what you think on the big games themselves, i.e. Liverpool versus Tottenham. Do you think it's going to be goals galore? Do you think it's going to be tight and end up 0-0? Who knows? But it'd be great to hear other people's opinions. So yeah, just get in the Discord waiting room. You're all part of it, and we can hear about that. I mean, I do like Show Me the Mane's reasonings as to why he's got rid of Abraham. It's because 89% of the Cash Mini League own Abraham.
Okay. So, okay, you can look at it that way, but then if Abraham goes on gets a brace or a hat trick, then that's going to damage you. Just pure on high ownership. But anyway, I can't talk. I can't possibly comment. You're doing much better than me, so all the best. Going for a Salah captain now, says Ian Anderson. Again, if you want to break from the overwhelming popular captain picks, then I think Salah would be up there.
The history suggests Salah will be a very good pick this particular game week. So I would say that if you own Salah as a differential, go with him this particular game week. Personally, but
let's bring in notorious nerd. I know he's absolutely itching to come on and share with everybody his team. So Notorious will bring you on now. Let's get ready to see what Notorious has done. So let's bring his team up. Got his team up here now. Let's bring him in.
It's a lovely team.
Notorious. Can you hear us? You're live on air.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going great. Thank you ever so much. We're so excited for Game Week 10.
This is a brilliant team.
Yeah,
brilliant team.
So,
set and I'm ready for everything.
You're all set and ready. Just to speak up a little bit, Notorious, you're a little bit quiet. So I'm just going to go through your team. We've got Patricio in goal. Very, very nice. Alexander-Arnold, Tamori and Lundstrom. Very nice. I like that. Back three. Sterling, Mason Mount, Mane and Kevin De Bruyne with the armband on Sterling. Jimenez, Wilson, Abraham. That is a very, very nice team. Very well balanced. You must be confident going into this game week.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm happy with the players that I have at the moment and with the fixtures they've got. So I'm just hoping the likes of Jimenez and Wilson deliver those big points along with the Sterling captaincy, and I'll be having a good week. So fingers crossed.
Well, yeah, you've got that Jimenez pick in. You've got the double up. I mean, Jimenez versus Patricio. I said that Newcastle are going to win 1-0. You're probably going to laugh at me, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I fancy Wolves to keep a clean sheet against Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle are not necessarily the most attacking of teams, and Jimenez has been on form, and he's just beginning to turn his season around. So I expect some points.
Well, I think that I think you could be onto the wave, the turning point for Wolves. I think Wolves are certainly looking better now. Jimenez is looking very, very, very sharp. And I think that a lot of people are looking at bringing in Wolves defenders going forward, and you've got Patricio in. So looking at that team, I can't see anything but a green arrow for you, to be honest with you. If I'm perfectly honest with you, I think you're going to get a similar score to myself and Steve-O, because again, you've got in the Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, you've got De Bruyne and Mane, I've got Aguero, you've got Sterling, and in looking at that team, I can't see any problems there whatsoever that you would even think about. What are you going to do? Are you saving transfers? You've used a transfer.
I haven't used any transfers this week, so I'll have 2 free transfers for the next week. But like my team is pretty settled for 2-3 game weeks ahead, so I wouldn't necessarily be forced into any moves. So that's what I'm thinking.
Notorious, when you have 2 free transfers, do you feel compelled to use one at the end of that game week, or are you quite? Have you been historically quite patient and be like, no, I don't need to do this transfer. I'll essentially lose a transfer and just get another 2. So just basically retain the 2 transfers. How does your mindset work when you're faced with that dilemma?
Yeah, I decide to delay the move as much as possible if there are midweek games. So if there's any injuries or if there's any suspension, so I delay that one transfer. So I'm not in a rush when I have a good team to use any of those 2 transfers. So
it's a very good team, very, very good team. Steve-O, any thoughts?
No, I've already complimented the team. It's a very good wildcard team. But what are your thoughts on this weekend's fixtures, specifically the Liverpool-Tottenham game, Notorious?
I think it could be high scoring, especially Liverpool at home. Since they're playing at home, they usually score a lot of goals at home. So Tottenham could get a hiding. And it'll be interesting to see how they line up.
So do you think that actually Mane could be a good captaincy pick ahead of, say, Sterling, Aguero, or even Kevin De Bruyne?
Oh, definitely. Mane is a good captaincy pick in any fixture. He scores against any team. So anyone worth considering him, I wouldn't say it's a bad pick, especially at home. So yeah, he's a good differential captaincy for this week.
Obviously, this is your wildcard team. Are you actually happy with it?
Sorry, what did you say, Sivo?
This is obviously your wildcard team from last week, but overall, are you happy with it, or are you like me, where you're kind of thinking, I wish I got that player instead?
No, I'm overall happy with it. Bit hoping for more points from this team. That's the only concern. Otherwise, I'm fairly happy with the overall 15 that I have got right now. I'm happy with the starting 11 as well as the bench. So,
where are you ranked this year overall?
140k around that mark at the
Wow.
moment.
Very
it's
good,
been tough.
very
Wow.
good.
Yeah, but
Well
I had
done,
some subpar game weeks in the last 2-3. So I'm hoping to get a green arrow.
So you've been, I'm assuming, getting your captaincies bang on then.
Yeah, exactly. It's the potential for Sterling is there. So if he gets on like he did against Atalanta in the Champions League, so there'll be a huge green arrow. So I'm hoping for that.
Well, it's Liverpool aren't an Atlanta, but you never know. They're not been that good at the back, have they, this season? And Son can easily punish. No, I mean, just to basically say, I wish you the best of luck for this game week. I think a lot of my players are in your team, so I'm really, really rooting for a green arrow for you. And I know you're a massive supporter of the show. You've been a member of the show for quite some time. Thank you ever so much for your continued support and your eagerness to come on air and share your team. It's much appreciated. And we look forward to speaking to you again at the weekend when you celebrate being in the top 100,000.
Yeah.
Good. Best of luck, you guys.
Cheers,
and
mate.
See you there.
Cheers, dude. Thank you. Hopefully I can catch you. Bye. That was Notorious Nerd with his team there, guys. Anyone would like to come in to the Discord to share your team, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll be shortening up the podcast this evening. And also, we'll be doing some cards. So basically, I would like to try and start to do... I'm too lazy, guys. I'm going to start to do them. I'm going to do some poll cards for the streams in future, so you guys can actually sort of comment on them. But I've talked about comments. I asked a question on Twitter earlier on today, inviting people to ask questions. So I said that I was going live today, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm just going to read some of the questions out. So, Steve-O, I'm going to ask you the first one. Is it worth the stress... This is from Manchester Reds. Is it worth the stress of having either Aguero or Sterling because of Pep's roulette? And would the most logical choice be to double up purely on Mane and Salah, as they are both nailed, and as a duo they're likely to match Sterling and Aguero for goals and assists?
Oh, that's a tough question there. So basically, it's either go with Salah and Mane, or go with Aguero and Sterling. And oh my goodness, I would. I like the logic that Manchester Reds has come out with. It's just the fixtures at the moment are so juicy for Man City, with Aston Villa and Southampton up next. Even though I agree with Manchester Reds' logic, I would personally stick with Aguero and Sterling, although I do appreciate that having Mane and Salah as security is the slightly better option. But I just think for the upcoming fixtures, I think Aguero and Sterling are just you'd be ruining the day if you were to get rid of them or not have them in your team, and then they go absolutely, because I can see those two specific fixtures. I mean, like I said, I've already predicted 3 or 4-0 to Man City against Villa, and then Southampton at home again. I can see that being another high scoring between 3 and 5 goals basically.
Well, again, Aussie Boy FPL, Aussie Boy, if you're watching this back on the replay, he's also kind of tied into that question. Won't be able to catch you tonight, unfortunately, but are you looking to eventually double up on Mane and Salah? And going on what Steve was saying, I would dare say that a lot of people, once the fixtures swing around, to be more Liverpool's fixtures swing around, I think that more people will be looking to possibly double up. Again, it comes back to the form of Salah as well, because in the Premier League he's not exactly been on fire, but as soon as he starts to get some hauls, certainly if he gets a hat-trick, I think people will be jumping right back on him. I really do. We saw it last season, and I think it will happen again this season, Steve-O.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think that moving forward, I think for me, I'd love to get back in my midfield, go with a 3-5-2, and have, if it's possible, I'll play around with it in a second, but if it's possible, Sterling and Salah back in my team and getting rid of Aguero. I just think that I think Sterling of the two out of Aguero and him is more safe, and I think that for me, I think going forward with a 3-5-2 with Salah, Sterling in your midfield, along with, in my case, Mane and Mount and De Bruyne could be something to certainly look at, because as we've already discussed, I mean, it's going to be pretty difficult getting those particular players in, because at the moment I've got 3 players out right now of my team, and I've only got 12.2 in the bank, so it would be virtually impossible. In fact, it is impossible to do that, but I certainly think that moving forward, hopefully, but I do like your David Silva.
Well, yeah, you never know. But Firetogs in chat, hello Firetog, massive supporter of the show. Thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. City beat Southampton 6-1 last season. They did, Simeon Batchelor. Right, we've got another question here from JK.
Before just quickly before you ask the question, Showing the Mane has asked about Dwight McNeil,
right? And
is he worth a point? Well, it says next week. I don't know why specifically next week. Let's just quickly see who they've got next week, and they have got Sheffield United away. That's got 0-0 or 1-1 written all over it. I wouldn't even bother with that. I've always said this: Dwight McNeil at 6 million. For a Burnley team, it's just no matter how well he's actually performing as a player, he has returned 4 assists this season. I wouldn't waste 6 million on him. It's such a shame he's 6 million. At 5.5, I think, you know what? He's an excellent choice. 6 million, it's just 0.5 too expensive. I wouldn't bother, but certainly not for Sheffield United away. That has got 0-0. That is going to be absolutely shocking, that game. So I wouldn't even bother. But you were going to say, Jason, the other question.
FPL JK on Twitter has asked, what do you do with Pookie? Move to Vardy or Jimenez, or hold one more time and reassess with 2 free transfers next week? I'm going to say right now, I think he's going to do something against United. I really do. I've got this gut feeling that Pookie's going to do something against United. Clip that, SMZ, because I'm sure it's going to happen. I would, if you've waited up until now, JK, if you're watching this back and you've waited up until now and held with Pookie, I would say just hold him and watch him against United. And then go into the next week with 2 free transfers. That's my honest opinion.
Yes.
And Steve, you're kind of nodding and saying yes. So yeah, pretty much agreeing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And finally, we've got FPL Maestro. When should I get Trent Alexander-Arnold in? Well, now, anytime. If you can get him in and not spend points doing it, get him in. He's an amazing FPL asset, which a lot of people want to have in. But a lot of the time it's money dependent. We've got a few people in the waiting room. I do see you guys. If you're listening we'll get you in shortly. Just bear with us.
Yeah, Show Me the Mane saying that is a question for us both, really. Would you ever captain a differential player for one game week off?
Differential.
To boost your rank? Yeah, but the problem is that I just find that every single player seems to be scoring just relatively the same. I mean, if I was to captain a differential this specific game week, it would be Mane. I originally had Mane as my captain. You never know, I may change it, but I doubt it because I've just looked at his stats or whatever he's returned at home this season.
So you said De Bruyne he missed. He played one game, didn't he? Is that what you said?
But he played one game. Yeah, that's it. That's all he's done.
See, I was thinking armband on De Bruyne. I really was. But I mean, this is the answer to your question is would De Bruyne be enough of a differential this game week? That's the question.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because the amount of people that are going to be captaining are either Aguero or Sterling. Yeah. Because every single home game this season that De Bruyne has played, he has brought in a double-digit score.
Pepe scored apparently, says Mac. Free kick of all things.
Wow.
No, but we appreciate your questions, guys. We'll ask more questions on Twitter. We'll get those cards as well for any of you that don't know. It's just basically a card system on the videos, so you can vote on the captaincy choices. And talking about captaincy choices, community team, guys.
Oh, yeah, I've put that in these team screenshots actually.
Community team. Vote for your community team captain. Where is it? Is it there? It is. I think that's a community team, isn't it? I'm going to bring it up now. So vote on the community team, guys. It's in Discord. Vote for your captaincy pick. It's really important that if you're part of the Discord channel, just spend a second of your time to vote on the team captain. Currently, it's on De Bruyne. There we go. But vote on the community team, guys. There we go. Right. Shall we get a guest on?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's bring on the.
Let's bring on.
Well, it's either Aguero or Brick.
They're all going to come on. They're all going to come on, so it's fine. Don't worry. Brick God. We're going to bring on Brick God first. Brick God, you got yourself muted. Welcome to the Gameweek 10 preview with myself and Steve-O. I hope you can hear me. Brick God, you're currently muted. Please unmute yourself and say hello. Okay. Well,
hello. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. There we go. How you doing, Brick God?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm really looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to the Super Sunday, and I'm hoping for a big green red arrow. Big green arrow. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm hoping for it, but who knows this year? To be honest, with all the way things have been going, I'm not really sure even who to captain anymore. Kind of why I've called in today, looking for the collective wisdom elite.
Wow, I've got your team up here. Steve, can you see his team?
Yeah.
Right, so let's have a
Yeah.
look. So we've got Gazaniga in goal. Ooh, I wouldn't be holding out for many points from Gazaniga in goal. But very quickly, I just have to say that we've had a new member join this evening. Firetog has become a member.
Really?
Thank you ever so much, Firetog, for
way,
supporting the show.
Niall, I forget his last name. He became a member the other day, actually, without us even being on air.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Neil. What was his name? Neil?
I'm sure it's
We'll
Niall. He's a regular.
I'll find out. But thank you, Firetog, for becoming a member and supporting the show. That's much appreciated. It really is. As the channel grows, you guys are doing a massive job in helping us. So yes, talking about your team, Gazaniga in goal, away at Liverpool. You've got Tierney at home to Palace. See, what's this love of Tierney? Are you just trying to be ahead of the curve here on Tierney?
Yeah, kind of. Because to be honest, I feel like FPL is more about not putting in the players who are in form and trying to predict the players who will be in form. With what I've seen from Tierney so far, tonight he got an assist as well. His crossing ability, honestly, in the Arsenal team, it's second to none. I think it's some of the best.
Okay, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think he's got the talent. I definitely do. But we've yet to see him really in the Premier League. So again, it could be ahead of time. Now, moving on to Rose for Tottenham, you've surely got to be thinking doubling up.
I haven't actually made my transfers. I'm still waiting for the press conferences just to see if Trent is okay, because Trent comes in for Robertson and Lacazette.
Oh, Trent's going to come in for Robertson.
No,
Right.
Rose, sorry.
Trent's going to come in from Rose. Right, okay. You got money to do that, have you?
Wow.
Oh, Lacazette for Bamyang and Trent for Rose. Okay, so you're going to be spending a -4.
Yeah, that'll be a -4. Do you think it's worth it, first of all?
No. Not for this week. I would wait and see on because you've already got a Bamyang.
Who's on your bench?
On my bench would be Lundstrom first, and then Rico second, Guendouzi third.
I play Lundstrom over Rose.
Yeah, I'd play Lundstrom over Rose.
Yeah, see, I was thinking of doing that instead of taking them.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Trent is so good creative. Like he is for me. Trent is to Liverpool what De Bruyne is to Man City. He is that creative hub. I feel like he can get some point return in the fixture, but I understand what you guys are saying.
No, I mean, I think that unless you're absolutely desperate, I wouldn't do it yet. Save your transfer. Oh, sorry, not save your transfer. Well, just play. Yeah, save your transfer and play Lundstrom, then use it. Do those transfers next week.
Yes.
That's just. I mean, but go with your gut, my friend. Go with your gut. If you think you're gonna get more, if that's gonna pay off the 4 points and some, then it's worth doing. But I personally think Aubameyang has got the higher point ceiling this game week than Lacazette. That's just my thoughts on it.
True. That's the thing about Aubameyang. He's more explosive, even though Lacazette's more consistent. He's more reliable. No,
definitely. Moving on to your midfield, you've got Yarmolenko, a player that I really admire. Yarmolenko, great international form. He's a great player. Playing at home to Sheffield United, a team that's well drilled and a tough cookie to break. I like that pick. I think that you're really on a mixed bag with him, and you just got to hope that he's in the right place, feeding him crosses in, getting on the other balls. I like it because it's differential. The rest of your team are pretty standard apart from Firmino. So if we just concentrate on Firmino, what's your thoughts of holding on to Firmino?
Well, at the beginning of the season, even up until now, I still feel like Firmino has been Liverpool's attacker. I don't remember. I think it was a Sheffield United game where they didn't start with Firmino, and you could really tell as soon as he came on, they started opening them up a bit more. He has the same goal involvement so far as Mane, and everyone's elevating over Mane at the moment.
But I've been watching in the games.
Stats,
in the games that I've seen in Liverpool, yeah, I know the underlying stats may be saying one thing, but when I've been watching Liverpool play, it seems to me that Firmino, he's dropping deep. You know, he's playing like attacking mid. You know, he's going out wide. He's spearheading the attack, and as you'd like him to. And I just think that I don't know. I just think that I think there's more value in having Mane.
In my kind of logic, I still think this might be a bit debatable. Not many people might agree, but I still think Salah is the better option than Mane. And when I watch a lot of Liverpool just because I like them, to be honest. Got nothing against them. But the way I see it, I don't. Mane sometimes he does absolutely nothing and then he'll pop up for goal, which is fair enough. That's what you want in an FPL asset sometimes. But I've watched him too many times when I felt like he's not involved in the game enough for my liking. And if I have Trent and Firmino, I feel like if there's a goal scored, Trent and Firmino will have something to do with it because they're the two creative hubs of that Liverpool. The only two that recreate in that Liverpool. So
I agree with you on Trent Alexander-Arnold being a creative key for Liverpool. Even Robertson to a lesser extent. The fullbacks bomb forward. They put the crosses in. Yeah, but Mane's amazing in the air. He gets on the end of headers. I think that Mane has moments of brilliance where his touch and his skill are better than Salah's. Like I honestly believe that. But Salah gets in so much more goal scoring opportunities than Mane, but he fluffs his lines a lot. This season he's fluffed his lines a lot, whereas I think if Mane had the same amount of goal scoring opportunities that Salah's had, I think there'd be more goals for him. But no, I can see your idea behind it, and I think that it's different. Do I like it? I don't know. But Steve-O, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, are you sticking with the Aubameyang captaincy?
Like I said, I'm not 100% sure if it'll be Aubameyang or Lacazette, but that's actually a good topic because I think that's kind of been the main talking point, in my opinion, of this year is captaincy picks, which I've seen to fail for so many people. I'm beginning to question my captain thought process or cognition. Like normally, I think who are my goal scoring players? Which team do I think will score the most goals? Which out of my goal scoring players are facing the worst defense, and who's at home? And last year, that thought process worked quite well for me, but this year it seems like it's fading. So do you guys or anyone in the chat even, do you think I'm missing something? Should I be considering players on form? Should I be considering players quality? Maybe going for more differentials?
I would say go with form personally, but
I mean form over fixtures in my eyes. But I think looking at your overall team is good. But I do think that Liverpool, in terms of Liverpool assets, Firmino for me, there's money in Firmino. I would probably look at spending elsewhere in that team. That's just my opinion. But no, it could all bite me come the weekend, and he could be setting up the likes of Salah and Mane, and even getting on the end of the goal. I mean, he's doing it right for Brazil, so yeah. You've got that now. You've got to stick with it. You can't really do much now. So
well, I do have the option of bringing in. I could have Mane or Matip, or Firmino and Trent. Those are the two combos I can go for. Which one would you two suggest? So I think I've been struggling with that option. I think Firmino and Trent, just because, as I said before, they're the two creative hubs. Liverpool score a goal, they have something to do with it.
I would go Matip and Mane. That's on it. Steve-O.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would go with as well. I agree.
I think that Mane's on better form than Firmino, and I think the Matip clean sheets that he would inevitably get will tide you over well. With the odds, with Mane outscoring Firmino over subsequent game weeks, I would imagine that it can offset the odd assist from Trent Alexander-Arnold every now and again. So yeah, I probably would go Matip and Mane out of those. Another goal from Pepe. Interesting.
Yeah,
another free kick.
2 free kicks.
Another free kick goal for Pepe. Wow. Well, there you go. Let's watch people transferring in Pepe now. But no, thank you ever so much, Brick God, for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Good
luck. And I hope to speak to you at the weekend at some point. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Going with Firmino. And obviously looking at that team, having it Rose in, I think Lundstrom. I agree with you, Steve. Having Lundstrom in over Rose is much better. And obviously Tierney for Arsenal. Could he be well ahead of the curve on ownership of Tierney? Looking very promising. Let's bring in FPL Aguero. FPL Aguero, you're live on air on the Gameweek 10 preview. How are you doing?
Guys, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Yes, not too bad. I'm looking at your team. It's very different. Well, I say it's very different, but it's just one player. That's different, actually, isn't it? Oh, you got Maddison as well. A 3-5-2. Do you want to talk us through your team?
Yeah, so I was out with my wife for a weekend.
Yeah.
And I unchanged my team, and I was looking at the amount of hits I've taken, and I've taken 11 so far, so it's minus 44. And I'm in a dilemma whether to transfer in Trent Alexander-Arnold or keep the 2 free transfers. What would you do?
Keep.
2 free transfers for next week.
Sorry, what was the question? I was just texting.
So what would you do? Would you transfer in Trent for Soyuncu or keep 2 free transfers and do nothing?
Well, who would you be benching for Trent?
I'll put Trent for Soyuncu because he's on my bench. So I'll be playing Trent if I get him. But
Yeah,
I don't know
but who would you be taking off out of your team for Trent?
Maybe, I don't know. That's the thing. Pereira maybe on bench for a week.
No. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Save. You got a decent team there. You got a very, very decent team there. Pereira's very attacking for Leicester, and I would hazard a guess that he's got just as much chance of attacking returns in that away game at Southampton than Trent does at home to Tottenham. So yeah, I would probably just save for this game week.
And I was thinking that I'm trying to limit my hits for the next 10 weeks, hopefully like 1 maximum to try catch up to people. But it's just so hard doing it, you know.
You stuck with Haller, and you know, again, this is. I'm gonna just pose it to Steve-O. What's your thoughts on his Haller pick there? If you're looking to try and free up money, and you know, we're talking about doing transfers now, would you be confident owning Haller going forward?
No, I again, based on what I hear from Suj off Planet FPL, he's a perfectly fine striker, but from a fantasy football perspective, he's not going to get enough returns, and I'd rather have. I mean, what is he, 7.5, something like that? If you got money in the bank, maybe upgrade Haller to Wilson, if anybody. I mean, you were mentioning about getting in Trent Alexander-Arnold or whatever, but if you're stuck with a 3-5-2, I'd rather have, I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe Vardy in for Haller and maybe downgrading Pereira to, I don't know, God knows who. Yeah. I don't know, but I'd be getting rid of Haller.
Or even Wilson, Callum Wilson.
I agree with you guys, but the thing is, I've stuck with him so long, and now his fixture's about to turn good.
About to turn, yeah.
Then I mean, again, listen to information you've got. Read what is there and available for you. Make an informed decision for yourself. If you've got a feeling that he's gonna, you know, the fixtures are swinging, he's gonna get you some returns, then just go with your gut, man. So many people get panicky about these things. I mean, you've held him for this long anyway. You've held him for this long. It's the same with Firmino and Brickguard. He's held him for this long. He's got a reason for holding him. If you can justify it, stick with it. Absolutely. I think that your team's looking in good shape. People are talking about Otamendi not playing. Is that what's the latest on Otamendi? Do we know? I think he's going to be all right, isn't he?
Did he train? I thought he trained.
Yeah, he's going to play. I think there's no reason I don't think for him not to play in that home game to Villa. I mean, unless anyone can come out with some amazing information that I don't know about. Boona saying that's a stunning team. There you go. I got a thumbs up from Boona there. But yeah, generally speaking, Aguero, I don't think you need to be making rash changes. That team.
But I actually think this week is a decent shout for a City triple captain. Do you guys agree or not?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do.
played my triple captain on Aguero in that Norwich game, and I think this is equally as tempting. So yeah, go for it, my friend. If you've got that feeling, go for it. Shoot for the stars, aim high, mate. But I would say, always with a triple captain, if I had De Bruyne and Sterling in my team like yourself, I would probably go triple captain De Bruyne, purely because you want to be doing it on a player that has the potential to outscore the popular captain choice. Because if you want to make the most of it at triple captain, you want to have it as a differential.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're only getting 12 points maximum more than your rivals, who are going to be all captain in Sterling. So there you go. Just food for thought. But yeah, all in all, Mr. Aguero, I think you're pretty much set.
Cheers, guys, for having me.
No, buddy. No, sorry, mate. What was that?
I'm enjoying the stream. I haven't been on the net for a week. I'm losing my mind. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And on Discord.
I know Discord's been down, but how come has your internet been playing up at home, or is it just?
I just haven't been home. I was with my wife for a week.
Okay, cool.
So,
well, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you here, and it's going to be a busy weekend on Discord. Put it that way. Let's hope the servers stay up. Thank you ever so much, FPL Aguero, and we'll speak hopefully at some point on the weekend.
good one.
Have a good night, mate. Cheers. Thank you. Let's bring in Norbets to talk about his team. Norbets, can you hear us? You're now on air.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can just about hear you. Very, very quiet, Norbets. Can you talk a bit louder?
I can try to talk a bit louder. Do you hear me now?
That's a bit better. Let's bring your team. I've got your team up now. Steve-O, do you want to talk about Norbets' team?
Yeah, I like the fact that it's a 4-3-3 formation. I'm assuming this is a mistake, but if not, let us know. But Callum Wilson is captain.
Yeah, I think Callum Wilson can be playing good against Watford. Because Watford had a horrible defense. I saw the Watford against Tottenham game, and I thought both teams had so bad defenses. So I think that Wilson can get a lot of goals.
You know what? I completely agree. I think that if you're looking for a non-mainstream captaincy pick for this game week, Callum Wilson, I think up with Vardy, I think Callum Wilson is a great alternative captaincy pick.
Well, it is our predictor show. What do you think the score will be in that game?
I think it will be maybe 3-1 or something. Or maybe 3-0 even.
And what do you think the Man City game will be?
I think Aston Villa is a good team, actually. I doubt that Man City will play that well. They had Champions League midweek, scored a lot of goals. Sterling had a hat-trick, I think, so they could also perform well, but I'm not sure. City has struggled against some of those teams, and they might struggle again, I think. So I'm not so sure. I'm at least not sure about triple captaining anyone. And I'm not sure if I want to captain Sterling.
Well, I went with the Bournemouth 2-1 win over Watford, and I applaud your choice of captaincy there as being different. And for preceding weeks that have been disappointing for a lot of FPL managers, if there's another bad week, you could be coming out with a big smile on your face, but just be prepared for the City onslaught that could happen against Villa. Are you going to be 100% on Callum Wilson?
I'm not 100%. I can't be. I have a lot of good players. I could also be picking up points. Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling, Callum Wilson, Abraham. Those are the persons I'm looking for.
Who have you benched? Who have you benched? Norbets.
I have benched I have Mahrez and TAA on the bench at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm going to play them or not.
Mahrez and TAA.
Yeah, Mahrez is a big question mark. Now he played 90 minutes in the Champions League, and it doesn't seem like Bernardo is getting his ban for the weekend. So I'm not sure if I want to have him in and
just
maybe
have him
get
coming on for
minutes.
coming on for 8 minutes or something crazy like that. No, I can understand that. it's money.
And
It's a lot of money on your bench, though. You're going to be playing TAA surely
Yeah.
over Diop or Rico.
Maybe, but again, Diop has Sheffield United, and Sheffield United is a good defensive team. But will they attack? I'm not sure.
Well,
Rico is playing against Watford, so those are good picks as well. So it's hard to tell.
I just think that, like we were talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold's creativity, it's almost at the heart of everything Liverpool do. I certainly think that I would be having him in my starting 11 over Rico or Diop for definitely. I think maybe so actually, because if he's ill, then he probably would be playing, or he won't be getting any minutes. Exactly.
So maybe I can have someone coming from the bench.
No, I can completely. What have you got? Are you going to save a transfer this week?
Yeah.
Saving a transfer going into next game week 11 with 2 transfers. Very nice. Steve, any final thoughts? I like the Pickford choice in goal, by the way.
I think overall you've made a perfectly good case into what you're doing, but like Jason said, I'd be playing Trent ahead of one of those 4 particular players, probably Rico. Because if you're not going to play Trent Alexander-Arnold, then why do you own him? Is what I would say.
I think I would play him over Diop actually.
And we've got a miss,
or maybe Tomori.
We've got J-Boy in chat saying no Liverpool attacker. Are you worried that you don't own any Liverpool attackers?
Yeah, a bit. I took Salah out for Mahrez for last game week, I think.
How much have you got in the bank?
I haven't got any because I upgraded Greenwood to Wilson.
Oh.
So I downgraded Salah and used all the money on getting a third striker in. So I'm a bit worried that I think a lot of people will be screaming to you to get say like Hala, downgrade Hala, and maybe Pereira and bring in Mane. I mean, a lot of people will be wanting you to bring in a Liverpool midfielder. But no, thank you ever so much, Norbets, for coming on this evening, and I wish you most luck on. No, because if you go with Wilson captain, come on the show, please. I want to talk to you, especially if he does well. Yeah. Thank you ever so much. Thank you for all the support as well. Thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it. Cheers, dude. Thanks for the stream and the Discord and everything.
No, thank you. You guys are what make it amazing what it is. So cheers.
Yeah, and everyone in chat, come to Discord.
Cheers. Come on to Discord. Speak to Norbits and a lot of the other guys. Right, we'll bring on Infamous. I'll get his name right one of these days. I'm sure he's listening in. Infamous. Good evening. You're going to be the final caller this evening on the Elite FPL podcast. It's game week 10. We're previewing it. Can you hear me? You got your mic muted. Unmute yourself. Let's go. Come on, Infamous. You can do this.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you guys?
I'm great. So team. Let's look at this. Yeah. So are you confident game week 10? Are you looking forward to it?
I'm very looking forward to it. I'm happy the fact that Sterling got a hat trick during the week, so he's probably beaming with confidence.
He's probably going to blank now. He's got his goals. He's probably going to blank this particular game. You're not going to go with the history of Aguero?
But I was a bit worried that he might not start, but then I heard, I read that Pep Guardiola was saying that he was very good in recovering after a game, and he can play in another game straight away. So that gives me so much confidence to captain Sterling.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I just think looking at your team, Steve-O said, wow, very good team. I'm going to say, wow, how can you afford that team? It's just ridiculous. It's really good. I'm liking everything I see. You got Alexander-Arnold, Tomori, you've got Mane, you've got De Bruyne, you've got Sterling, you've got Aguero, you've got Tammy Abraham, you've got Mason Mount. I mean, it's just like a star-studded team. It's almost like one of those teams that you see that you think, this is the team I'd like to have, but I can't afford it. No, I think that doesn't need anything doing to it whatsoever. You've used a transfer, or are you looking to save a transfer?
I'm looking to save a transfer. I always try to think about banking a transfer? Where can I bank a transfer?
What's your team value?
103.8 million.
Wow.
I started well. I did my research at the beginning of the season
There
to
you
see
go,
where,
guys.
and yeah, I got in ahead of the curve. And this is what my team looks like at the moment. But I want to just talk to you about future transfers. Is that okay?
Go for it, mate. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So I'm planning to get rid of Aguero soon.
Yes,
probably after the next 2 game weeks that he has. I'm gonna probably bring in Vardy, which I'll be able to then upgrade Kelly to Robertson. So I'll have 2 Liverpool defenders.
Oh, I might go possibly a different route. See, there's a lot of people talking about having Mane and Salah in. And I wonder if you would entertain the idea of going with downgrading Aguero and upgrading Mount to Salah to have Salah, Mane, and Sterling and De Bruyne in midfield. What's your thoughts on that? Is that a bit too much money for you?
A bit too overkill for me.
Yeah. I looked at that midfield though at the start of the season, and I was just like mouth watering. But the team value that you've got, you could have that midfield, and you could still have a very well balanced team. Steve-O, what's your thoughts on what he was saying about bringing in Robertson, and possibly downgrading Aguero?
I immediately said yes. I said earlier on I'd rather be having Sterling instead of Aguero, and I think that's a really, really good plan. I think getting Robertson, then again you're doubling up on Liverpool. I just realised
the thing is right now is that when you take City's fixtures into account, after the next 2 nice fixtures, and then obviously they're against Liverpool after that one, Liverpool's fixtures go really nice. Game week 13 onwards. I don't know. Maybe if Salah starts, like what we saw in midweek, if he starts to score, you may want to be a bit greedy and have Mane and Salah in your team. That's just my thoughts. I mean, I know that I'm just personally not a fan of Robertson. I mean, I've been saying all season I'm not a massive fan of his. I think he overperformed last season. He's a decent player. He's in a team of world class players. Would I call him world class? I wouldn't. I think I would personally have Trent, Mane, and Salah in for my 3, then have Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, and Mane. That's just my take on things, and I know people in chat will be talking. Well, Jason, you don't know what you're on about, but that's my thoughts on it. I think that Aguero will be a departure from your team after the next few game weeks, purely because of the worry and rotation. The fact that you've already got De Bruyne and a heavy hitting Sterling in anyway. Sterling being a player that I think over the course of a season will be given more minutes and more stability, especially with Jesus vying for more minutes under Pep and Pep giving him those minutes. No, I think that it's a very good headache to have in the position that you're in. What's your overall rank by a few people asking?
60,000 at present.
just well done, man. well done. We've got so I mean, you're in a driving seat right now. I'll be honest with you. You really are you can do that move. You won't see, I think, any damage to your team by bringing in either Robertson or bringing in Salah for Mount. Steve-O, sorry.
I just feel that having Mane will cover Salah, and if I have Alexander and Robertson, they will both more likely get attacking returns in terms of their assists. So if Salah does haul, and Robertson will cover that for me.
You hope, you hope that. But then you have got the added bonus of the clean sheet points, haven't you, for those screen fixtures as well? You're talking Crystal Palace away, Brighton Hove at home, Everton at home, Bournemouth away, Watford at home, and obviously then you got to worry. Then you got to prepare yourself. If you were to triple upon Liverpool, you have to prepare yourself for game week 18, where they are obviously not playing.
Yes.
To have that in the back of your mind as well. So you'd be saving it transfers.
In the back of mind.
Or having a strong bench. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping that I might just downgrade Robertson at that point to someone from, depending on what team defenders are playing very well, then I'll downgrade Robertson.
Like Pereira or something, maybe. I don't know, to bring in Pereira.
I'm not really a fan of Leicester because Leicester always concede. Even though Pereira is one of the better players in the squad, I just feel that Leicester are always open to conceding goals. So if anything, I would probably
a lot of teams have been conceding goals, but yeah, no, I completely agree. I can understand that. I think that it's a nice headache. Like I said, it's a nice headache to have. I think you're in pole position. You're above and beyond the likes of me and Steve-O in your decision making. Your team value is astronomical. What you've been doing so far has worked out for you. It's paid off for you. So stick with your gut. I think that if, like I said, I possibly would look to be greedy and have a massive midfield with that team value you've got. May take advantage of it slightly and just bring in Salah. Whether or not you can afford to do that, I don't know. But I think alternatively, without my Man United hat on and the fact that Liverpool don't play in game week 18, I think that if you did decide to bring in Robertson, and downgrade Aguero for the likes of Vardy or Callum Wilson, I think that's equally a good option. I really do. It's the more I think about it now, I think that I think it's a wait and see on Aguero, see what happens to him. But you don't need to necessarily go with the 3 after game week. Well, after game week 13, really. But thank you ever so much for being with us this evening. Is this the first time? Sorry, you have to forgive me.
It's actually the first time. I've watched your streams after you guys finished, and I find them very insightful and very good. I think you two are really good at what you do, and I just pray that you guys continue just delivering.
We'll continue.
We come from very small backgrounds in terms of like FPL. We've been used to streaming on Facebook to like a couple of people or a couple of viewers. We started off to screen. We're more dedicated than ever, aren't we now, to make sure that the content is always improving, and it's down to the feedback that we get. I keep saying about it, and you guys will be sick about me just talking about you guys, but the feedback we get from you guys and the motivation and the dedication that you show to us, like being in the channel like an hour. Like I saw someone commenting in the preview show in the chat like a day before the stream had actually due to go live. Hours before the stream goes live, you guys are waiting for us to come on, and that just means so much to me and Steve. Honestly, we can't thank you enough for the support. We really do appreciate it, genuinely from the bottom of our hearts. We never expected it to grow in as fast a period of time as it has grown. And it's the likes of you, Infamous. I'll get your name right. I do apologise. It's the likes of you guys that tell everyone else about our Discord community, because it's no use just me and Steve talking about our Discord. You guys telling other people about our Discord is what brings in the community members, and they see for themselves what a great community it is, and I really, really do not take that for granted one moment at all. So thank you ever so much, Infamous, and we look forward to having you on again in the show. I look forward to seeing you in the top 10k, mate. Honestly, I really do. Yeah. I think you've.
My actual aim is to get into the top 5,000. So I've only been playing this for 2 seasons now, and last season I was 4,835. So,
jeez,
I think I can. I think do better this time around.
Whatever you're doing, mate, you're doing it right. So you just keep on doing it, and let us know what you're doing, because you seem to have the secret ingredients. Thank you, Infamous. I appreciate you being with us tonight, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Cheers, man. Thank you. It means a great deal to hear that from a new guest on the show, and we mean it, guys. We really do. You guys are just the best. Thank you, Steve-O. I think that's almost kind of wrapping it up now. It's 10:15. People are asking, is there a stream tomorrow? Fortunately, I don't think there is a stream tomorrow. Well, what? Sorry, what was that?
You never know.
Oh,
You
there
never
we
know.
go. Possibly Steve-O doing a breakfast show. You never know.
Breakfast one.
No? Okay, just a lastminute.com. What, are you going to do a transfer, Steve-O? Are you gonna take some hits, Steve-O? You're gonna take some.
We do.
You're gonna take a minus. You're gonna take a minus 16 on air, Steve-O. Are you gonna?
Just clickbaiting, is it?
Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. News just in. I need to play a news theme. News just in. Steve-O will be taking a minus 16 live on air tomorrow night. Tune in at 8 p.m. No, seriously, go. I am intrigued, Steve-O. If you do stream, I'll be watching my phone, watching for that notification. I hope you do, because nothing would make me.
Look at that.
There we go. What's this? We got a member.
Jacko.
Oh,
Jacko. Thank you.
Jacko. Oh my God, the thing didn't show up because I switched screen. Thank you ever so much, Jacko, for that. Oh, there we go. It's come up. There we go. Thank you ever so much, Jacko, for becoming a member. Enjoy your badge and enjoy your emotes, and more emotes coming soon. I think we get 2 more members. We get another emote that we can use, and then you guys can spam it in chat. But Steve-O, do you like to do the admin?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's the usual malarkey, really. If you've enjoyed the stream, it's the usual story. The easiest way to show support is by simply hitting the like button. That's about as easy as it gets. As you're walking out the door, just simply hit the like button, and that's all you need to do to show your support for the show. If you are brand new, I've seen a couple of people that say that they've never been here before, but they've really enjoyed the stream today. And if you haven't been here before and you haven't subscribed, by all means hit the subscribe button. And of course, we do like to do the odd spontaneous stream, and you never know, there may be one tomorrow evening. And the only way to find out about that one would be either through A, Twitter, B, Discord, or C, by hitting that notification bell on the older subscription part of it, all things. So yeah, by all means, just subscribe to us if you want. And we are pretty much, as we always say, a daily streaming FPL show, as per se. But like I said, follow us on social media at Elite FPL. That's on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, the link to our Discord to come live on air is in the description of this video. Other than that, elitefpl.com to go and get your All Elite Wrestling t-shirt.
And also, yeah, I've got some merchandise on there as well. Steve-O keeps on me about it. I actually am going to talk to you about this. We'll talk about that. But no, also Tap Sport, guys. Don't forget, they're still running the promotion for the Tap Sport website. Using our unique code, you get an extra free play. And you get drawn into a monthly prize pool of £100 unique to Elite FPL subscribers. And it's free to play. There we go. Thank you ever so much, guys. And we'll see you. Hopefully, we might see Steve-O tomorrow night. You never know. But we'll see you at the weekend. Have a good Gameweek 10. I hope your green arrows are massive. Cheers.
Just of interest, whereabouts are you? Not in the world, but are you near like an industrial machine or something? It's very 2 seconds. Just ask a couple of questions. I just needed to get the door for a second.
No problem,
this is what happens when you're live.
What's going on? No, not really. I'm waiting to go to gym. What about yourself? Live on YouTube doing a stream.
Why do you feel that you're constantly changing your teammate? Is it just
It's
there's
just
just
I'm
so many
hearing
ideas?
So many ideas, so many different perspectives. I blame Brett Mollison for his 5 at back, because when you see my new team,
wow.
Brighton home, they couldn't buy a goal in the last season.
Well, I don't know. Dan's got Glenn Murray. I think he'll have a word to say about that.
I'm detecting possibly a German accent. I'm probably completely way out. But where are you calling us from?
South Africa.
On the first day, I literally just typed in FPL, like first draft, and yours came up like first. So I thought, oh, well, I'll watch one of the live streams when it comes on. And then I thought, this is a bit long, isn't it? About 2 hours in. And then 3 hours later, well, an hour later, I was like, yeah, these seem alright, you know. Steven's not that bad.
I have one question for you. I want you to predict the order of the Elite FPL ranking. So, like, who do you think will finish first, second, and third out of y'all three this season?
So it's certainly no disrespect to Dan, but it's certainly going to be between me and Jason, and right now, as it stands, I'd go with Jason because my history suggests that I'm going to be having a bad season.
So I've got the 5 at the back. I just see a lot of value there. I feel like if I don't have Salah, I can spread the money elsewhere and maybe get the points another way.
All the teams now, except for obviously Salah and Sterling, these players, a lot of players are going to change towards the start of the season just because of new transfers, injuries that could happen, and all of that. So for me to tell you now, like personally right now, I'd say definitely if Tammy Abraham or Batshuayi are cheap, I'd get one of them just because I don't care about Man United. We can score against them at least 2 or 3.
Hey guys, this season we're using Discord. It's a text and voice application where you can talk all things FPL with fellow community members. You can post your team in the Rate My Team, talk in the general chat, you can look at transfer news, look at awesome GIFs, sign up for our Cash Mini League, look at our previous podcasts, and even join us live on air in one of our streams. We look forward to seeing you guys. Link is in the description, or look at the code on screen.